Hello students, I welcome you all to EPG Pathshala. This is Dr. P.A. Rajeshwari, Assistant Professor in the Department of Food Science and Nutrition, Avinashalingam Institute for Home Science and Higher Education for Women, Coimbatore. Today we are going to discuss about the topic Techniques in Preparing a Good Questionnaire. Introduction. Collection of data is an important stage in research. In fact, the quality of data collected determines the quality of research. While primary data is collected by several methods could be adopted. Of these, the most popular and widely used and adopted method is the use of questionnaire. A questionnaire is a set or sheets of paper containing questions relating to certain specific aspects regarding to which the researcher collects the data. Professor Sin Yong says the questionnaire consists of a schedule of questions sent by email to the person on a list or in a sample survey. The persons to whom the questionnaire is sent are called respondents who are sent their answers to researchers. The questionnaire should be carefully designed as it is considered as main instrument of the survey method. It facilitates data collection. It is a verbal report of the data by the respondent. This will help the researcher to get material which respondent is willing to share. Now let us move on to the designing of questionnaire. The following consideration should be borne in mind by the researcher while designing a questionnaire. Proper selection and phrasing of the questions will assure good number of returns which ultimately leads to accuracy in findings. Therefore, due consideration is also required for physical design of a questionnaire. The cooperation of respondent is largely based on physical appearance of the questionnaire. A poor or unattractive questionnaire may cause low response. The questionnaire or schedule designing will also have consideration to respondent. Respondent of different level and well-trained investigator to record information, so their ability to record response is main consideration of designing. The choice of wording results in understanding of questions clearly. The informant should understand the spirit of the question. Special attention should be given to the sequence of the question. The purpose of question has to be considered while designing. If the purpose is to knowledge, ability or attitude for informant, then it should be designed accordingly. Analysis is main consideration in designing the questions. Questions should be designed in such a manner where the classification and tabulation can be done easily. Let us now see about the physical appearance of questionnaire. First important point is size. The size of the questionnaire depends upon the scope and items to be included. Large size is suitable for mail survey questionnaire, whereas small size is recommended for schedule. Therefore, size should not be cumbersome for respondent. A normally designed questionnaire of monarch size is 7 by 10 inches, which can generally be expected to produce higher percentage of returns than one which is of letterhead size, that is 8.5 by 11 inches. And the letterhead size will get a higher percentage of response than a legal sized sheet, which is 8.5 by 14 inches. Next point is, the fewer the pages, the higher will be the percentage of returns. By this experience, the author would like to state that there is little justification for using the booklet form containing more pages. Normally, 4 pages of a questionnaire, each page of the size of 8.5 by 11 inches can be considered its optimal length. Third is the proper quality and color of the paper. The durability is one of the requirements of preserving records. Light color and smooth surface is desirable for paper to be used for questionnaire or schedule. Fourth one is the items arranged in questionnaire. Question should be properly arranged so that the question depends on the answer of the earlier one that should be given proper place. Fifth one is the layout. The layout should give the impression of a neat printed page which is easy to read and easy to fill up. The page should never be overcrowded. Moving on to the choices of questions. The questions having direct bearing on problem of research study should be included in set of questions. The questions whose answers cannot have effectiveness or accuracy should be avoided. The questions should be included with an eye on requirement of analysis. The questions related to personal information should be avoided. Only radial questions should be asked, and the questions with inaccurate response should be avoided. Coming to the important aspect, that is the wording of questions. Due care should be taken for formulating questions. Response should be based on this fact only. Greater care should be taken while wording of questions, in which opinions is to be expressed or actual information is to be provided. If question is beyond the understanding of the respondent, then suggestive answer will help them to respond. Now let us see about the guidelines for wording questions. The researcher must pay attention to the following points while wording questions. Number 1. Use simple and familiar words to avoid confusion. Number 2. Formulate question in such a way that will provide required information. Number 3. The questions having multiple meaning should be avoided. Number 4. Ambiguity make questions complicated, so avoid the use of such ambiguous words. Number 5. Leading question may produce biased answers. Question should be worded in such a manner in which untruthful answer may be avoided. Number 6. Catchwords, emotional words or danger words should not be used while framing questions. Number 7. The use of phrases may reflect upon the understanding of informant. They found to answer the questions as they understand and feel about the situation. So, the phrases should be rarely used. Number 8. The question must allow all possible response. The provision should also be made for indefinite answer like do not know. Number 9. The alternatives should be realistic in multiple choice question. Make alternative meaningful. They are too phrased in terms of concrete situations. Number 10. The amount of writing required in questionnaire and schedule should be reduced to minimum. Number 11. A few questions should also be designed which can be checked for the accuracy and consistency of information. Number 12. The use of questions which invites response to values should be avoided. And number 13. Proper justification should be made in case of any unreasonable questions. Now, let us have a look at the mechanics of questionnaire construction or designing a questionnaire or features of a good questionnaire. The researcher has to decide composition of questionnaire while taking into consideration the data which is already available on topic and the extent of data now required. The process of drafting questionnaire can be divided into the following aspects, which includes questionnaire should be printed, cyclostyled or photocopied. The first part of the questionnaire should specify the object or purpose for which the information is required. An assurance to the respondent that the Information furnished would be kept confidential must be given. Each question should be specific and clear. Personal questions on wealth, habits, etc. should be avoided. Questions should be given in a sequence. For example, question relating to marital status should be followed by the number of children. Questions should not require any referencing before replying. Questions should not force the respondent to recall from his memory anything to answer. Questions needing computation, calculation, consultation should be avoided. Questions on sentiments, beliefs and faith should be avoided. Repetition of questions should be completely eliminated. Sufficient space should be given for answering the questions. If any diagram or map is used, then it should be printed clearly. Questions which cross-checks the response could be built into the questionnaire. Express the items as clearly as possible. Choose words that have precise meanings wherever possible. Avoid complex or awkward arrangement of questions. Include all qualifications needed to provide a reasonable basis for responses selection. Avoid unessential specificity in the question or in the responses. Avoid the inclusion of non-functional words in any item. Avoid the inclusion of trivial questions. Make the suggested answers as simple as possible. Be sure that items will seem to the respondent to apply the situation. Restrict from asking questions of opinion unless opinion is specifically required. Avoid items that are too suggestive or too unstimulating. They should not lead a respondent to go beyond the facts, but they should induce the respondent to provide the required information. And last, phrase questions to avoid the academically or socially acceptable response. Coming to the sequence of questions. The sequence of question means the order in which the questions are to be asked. Referral to the questions can be avoided by proper arrangement of questions. Question should be logically arranged. The opening question should always be of interest to the respondent and easy to answer. The question requiring personal data to socioeconomic status should also be put to the end of the questionnaire. The sensitive questions should be asked at the extreme end of the questionnaire. In case of male respondent, interesting questions should be asked in the beginning. Let me now explain about the types of questions. Contingency questions. A question that is answered only if the respondent gives a particular response to a previous question. This avoids question of people that do not apply to them. For example, asking men if they have been ever pregnant. Matrix questions. Identical response categories are assigned to multiple questions. The questions are placed one under the other, forming a matrix with response categories along the top and a list of questions down the side. This is an efficient use of page, space and respondent's time. Closed-ended questions. Respondent's answers are limited to a fixed set of responses. Most scales are closed-ended. Other type of closed-ended questions include dichotomous questions, that is, the respondent answers with a yes or a no. Multiple choice questions. The respondent has several options from which he has to choose the answer. Scaled questions. Responses are graded on a continuum. For example, rate the appearance of the product on a scale from 1 to 10, with being the most preferred appearance. Example of the types of scales include the Likert scale, semantic differential scale and rank order scale. Likert scale. A like heart item is simply a statement which the respondent is asked to evaluate according to any kind of subjective or objective criteria. Generally here, the level of agreement or disagreement is measured. The format of a typical 5-level Likert item is strongly disagree, disagree, neither agree or disagree, agree and strongly agree. Rank order scale. The respondent is presented with several items simultaneously and asked to rank them. For example, rate the following advertisement from 1 to 10. This is an ordinal level technique. Open-ended questions. No options or predefined categories are suggested. The respondent supplies their own answer without being constrained by a fixed set of possible responses or answers. Example of the types of open-ended questions include completely unstructured questions. For example, what is your opinion of questionnaires? Word association. Words are presented and the respondent mentions the first word that comes to mind. Sentence completion. Respondents complete an incomplete sentence. For example, the most important consideration in my decision is to buy a new house is dash. Story completion. Respondents complete and incomplete story. Picture completion. Respondents fill in an empty conversation balloon. Thematic appreciation test. Respondents explain a picture or make up a story about what they think is happening in this picture. Now let us move on to the classification of questionnaire. The information required in questionnaire may be classified into 3 main aspects. First is identification of information. Under this part of questionnaire, researcher must identify the name and nature of the survey conducted, name of the sponsoring agency, object of survey, personal information of the respondent and statement in the respect of confidential treatment to the information provided. Background of the respondent. In this part of questionnaire, socio-economic and political background information of the respondent is collected. Age, income, social composition, political preferences, socio-economic status items are included as background information. Subject matter of survey. In this section, questions will be asked about the power of understanding. When the knowledge of the topic is clear, then opinion on various issues for respondent will be holding and will be ascertained. In case if the respondent advice is considered important, then information will be collected accordingly. Sufficient information will also be provided to respondent to enable him to make proper judgment. Let us now see about the types of questionnaire. Questionnaire can be classified on various bases. The classification of questionnaire based on the variable of the structure is as follows: structured questionnaire and unstructured questionnaire. Now let us see in detail. First is the structured questionnaire. In structured questionnaire, the questions are definite. Additional questions are restricted only in case of more detailed response. The questions are presented in same wording and in same order for having proper response. The form of question may be either closed or opened. It means categorical or free. The questions is set in advance. In closed-ended questions, fixed alternative answers are given so that the respondent can choose appropriate answer. In this question, the response is limited to stated alternatives. The alternatives may be in the form of yes or no. Open-ended questions are designed to allow free response of the subject where the issue is identified. The respondent is given the opportunity to answer the questions on his own preference. Now we will move on to the advantages and disadvantages. Advantages of closed-ended questions are: closed-ended questions are simple to administer, quick and inexpensive to analyze, and they are more efficient. Alternative replies help to understand the clear meaning of the question, and closed questions require respondents to make judgment about the alternatives. Coming to the disadvantages, it may force a statement of opinion on the issue. Many respondents may not have clear opinion on certain issues. Closed questions are ill-equipped to reveal issues. These questions do not provide respondent frame of reference. Moving on to open-ended questions. The advantages includes it is used as an exploratory tool before opinion research objectives have been clearly defined. Opinion of researcher is not forced on respondent through suggestive answers, and in complex issue, open-ended questions are desirable. Coming to the disadvantages, different respondents are likely to make different interpretation quite different from researcher to researcher, and there is possibility that some of the questions may go undetected. Coming to unstructured questionnaire, when the characteristics are explained above are not present in a questionnaire, it is known as an unstructured questionnaire or non-structured questionnaire. In this type of questionnaire, pre-decided questions cannot serve the purpose of research study. Then the researcher is provided freedom for framing on-the-spot questions to get appropriate response. Mostly in this case of interview, on-the-spot questions are asked. In this process, interview is provided with the guidelines about information and what is to be obtained. Then, based on the scope provided, the investigator will have to frame the questions, and replies to this can be recorded by him. When the research problem is being first explored, the unstructured questions have more effectiveness. This picture depicts the questionnaire designing process, in which 10 steps are involved. So start with step 1. Determine the survey objective, resources and constraints. Step 2. Determine the data collection method. Step 3. Determine the question response format. Step 4. Design on the question wordings. Step 5. Establish questionnaire flow and layout. Step 6. Evaluate the questionnaire. Step 7. Obtain approval of all relevant parties. Step 8. Pre-test and revise. Step 9. Prepare a final copy of the questionnaire. And the last step, step 10, is implement the survey. Coming to the last aspect of designing a questionnaire, that is pre-testing a questionnaire or pilot study. It is often suggested that before a questionnaire is finalized, it should be field tested. That is, after the questionnaire is drafted, to decide whether it is comprehensive or not, it is used with a few respondents. Their responses are studied to determine the need for restructuring the questionnaire, resequencing the question, addition or deletion of questions, giving more instructions for filling up, etc. can also be decided. Further, the pilot study will bring to light the weakness of the questionnaire. Based on the pre-test, necessary modifications in the questionnaire can be made, and then it could be released for use. Let me summarize by stating that questionnaire construction is an art. A good questionnaire is the product of long and painstaking work. The experienced researcher will construct a questionnaire in a few hours. The appropriateness of the research problem with regard to the type of information required, the type of respondent reached, the accessibility of respondents, and the precision of the hypothesis. The more closely focused the hypothesis, the more effective the questionnaire. Hence, the above mentioned points should be taken into due consideration for preparing a good questionnaire. Questionnaire is an important and easy way of data collection. Thank you.